As the first light of morning crept over the township, the world seemed to hold its breath. The sun rose slowly as if it, too, understood the weight carried by the people below. Its soft gold touched the roofs of half-finished houses, slid over dusty paths, and brushed the old mango trees that stood like silent watchers of life's struggles. Roosters crowed from different corners, their cries mixing with the far-off hum of the waking city. Smoke rose from a few early cooking fires, twisting through the cool air like thin fingers reaching for warmth. The light revealed everything, both the hope and the hardship of the township. Children were the first to stir. A small boy named Cato, with bare feet and an oversized shirt, ran out of his home clutching a handmade toy car. His laughter cut through the morning stillness like a spark of life. "Mama, the sun is awake," he shouted, waving the toy above his head. His mother stepped out behind him, tying her headscarf. Though her face carried the strain of unpaid bills and long days, she smiled softly. "Yes, my son, and where there is sun, there is another chance." Across the path, an old woman known as Mama Ao sat on a small wooden stool, warming her hands over a pot of tea. Her eyes followed the sunrise with quiet understanding. "Ah," she murmured, "the ancestors have opened the day. May it bring peace to those whose hearts are heavy." Even the houses seemed to stretch as the light touched them. Cracked walls, rusted gates, and broken windows all glowing as if the sun wanted to remind them, "You are still standing." But not everything the light touched was bright. Near the marketplace, a young girl named Talia swept the dusty ground in front of Madame Kira's tall modern house. She worked quickly, her thin hands moving with practiced speed. She had slept outside on a torn mat again, shivering through the night while the wealthy family rested behind locked doors. As the sunlight reached her, she paused for a moment and closed her eyes. "God, make today gentle," she whispered softly, almost afraid to be heard. Inside the house, Madame Kira's sharp voice sliced through the morning air. "Talia, are you sweeping or sleeping? Hurry up. People will pass by soon." Talia lowered her head. "Yes, madam, I am finishing." But still, the sun fell on her with the same warmth it gave the others. It did not choose sides. It did not see rich or poor. It only saw human beings. The township slowly came alive around her, women heading to the well with buckets balanced on their heads, men pushing wooden carts, and elders stretching their backs as they prepare for another day of stories, work, and survival. Mama Ao lifted her tea mug in Talia's direction and called, "Child, don't forget, even the smallest plant grows toward the light." Talia managed a small smile, carrying those words in her heart like a secret blessing. And somewhere beyond the township, the city skyline glittered, cold, tall, and busy. It knew nothing of this morning, this struggle, this hope. But fate had already begun to move, quietly weaving the lives of the township's people towards something none of them could yet see. As the sun rose fully, the day opened like a great story waiting to be told. The morning grew brighter, and with it, the township's heartbeat quickened. Smoke curled into the air from small grills lined along the dusty road, carrying the warm smell of roasted maize. Women stood behind their makeshift stalls, some with babies tied on their backs, others humming old folk songs as they turned the golden cobs over charcoal fires. Mama Lunga, known for having the sweetest maize in the area, waved a fan made of woven palm leaves to keep the smoke steady. "Fresh maize, hot like the morning sun," she called. Her voice carried the tone of a woman who had seen many seasons of struggle but refused to bow to them. A young man approached, coins clutched in his hand. Mama Lunga smiled as she handed him a cob. "Eat well, my son. Strength comes from food and prayer." A few steps away, children ran barefoot along the path, kicking up clouds of red dust. Their laughter was loud, untamed, and free. Their feet slapped the earth like a drumbeat, echoing the rhythm of the village. One little girl, Abney, chased after her older brother, shouting, "Wait for me. I'm faster today." Her brother laughed back. "Then run like the wind. Small one." The children zigzagged between vendors and customers, dodging buckets, baskets, goats, and bicycles with the skill of those who had grown up navigating life's obstacles. Their joy filled the air, a reminder that even in hardship, innocence survives. Vendors lined the roadside on both sides, selling fruits, beads, handmade sandals, roasted groundnuts, and colorful fabrics that dance in the breeze. Their voices layered over each other like the beating of many drums. Buy fresh oranges. Get your beads. Bring beauty to your home. Maize, maize, sweet and hot. Though their calls mixed in the air, no one felt overwhelmed. It was a song of survival, each voice adding meaning to the symphony of daily life. Talia passed through the crowd quietly, carrying an empty basket sent by Madame Kira. Her steps were slow, her eyes lowered, not wanting to draw attention. Still, Mama Lunga saw her and called softly, "Child, come here." Talia approached unsure. "Yes, Mama?" Mama Lunga's eyes held a mix of concern and warmth. "You look tired, my girl. Take this piece of maize." "No payment." Talia hesitated. "Madam Kira will." "Hush," Mama Lunga whispered, placing the maize into her hand. "Even the birds of the sky eat without asking permission. You are a human being." Talia swallowed hard, her eyes shining with quiet gratitude. "Thank you, Mama. May the ancestors bless your hands." As she stepped away, the children darted past her again, laughing and spinning. Their joy brushed against her sorrow, reminding her of a life she once dreamed of. Vendors continued their dance of calling customers. Women fanned their maize. Children played in the dust, and the township breathed with life. Simple, loud, chaotic, but real. And somewhere in all this movement, fate kept weaving its threads, preparing to draw Talia's life into a story far bigger than she could imagine. The day had only begun, but its path was already forming. The rough road that cut through the township looked simple to an outsider, just a stretch of reddish soil with stones scattered like forgotten memories. But for the people who lived here, that road carried the weight of their stories, their struggles, and their hopes. Every morning, the rising sun revealed its scars, deep cracks, puddles from yesterday's rain, and footprints telling tales of those who walked before dawn. An old bicycle rattled over the stones, its metal frame shaking with every bump. The rider, an elderly man named Baba Kintu, muttered, "This road tests our bones, my children, but it also teaches us to be strong." He always said that, as if reminding the world that hardship builds character. A group of younger boys walking beside him laughed. "Baba, maybe the ancestors made this road to humble us," one of them joked. Baba Kintu chuckled. "Or to keep your feet awake, so you don't wander into trouble." The road was more than a path. It was a reminder of where everyone came from and what they faced each day. Women balanced water containers on their heads, stepping over puddles and stones with practiced grace. Their feet knew where to land even without looking. Each step echoed the quiet truth. Life was never smooth, but forward movement was still possible. Along the side, a little boy named Momo sat repairing his old sandals with a piece of wire. His mother stood nearby, selling tomatoes under a small umbrella made of patch cloth. She sighed as a car from the city zoomed past, splashing muddy water on the roadside. "These city people," she whispered, shaking her head. "They forget that their tall buildings rest on the backs of villages like ours." Momo looked up at her. "Mama, one day I will build a road so smooth that even the birds will want to walk on it." His mother smiled softly. "Dreams grow from the soil of struggle, my son. Hold on to yours." Farther down the road, a young woman, Talia, walked slowly, clutching a basket at her side. Her eyes scanned the ground, watching for sharp stones that had cut her already thin slippers. Dust clung to her legs and skirt, but she moved with quiet strength. People greeted her with gentle nods, aware of the heavy life she lived under Madame Kira's roof. As she passed, an elderly woman sitting under a tree called out, "Child, the road may look rough today, but remember, no path stays the same forever. Rain washes, sun dries, and time changes everything." Talia bowed her head respectfully. "Yes, grandmother." The road connected rich and poor, sorrow and hope, old wisdom and young dreams. In the distance, shiny city towers stood tall, their reflections catching the sun like mirrors mocking the township below. But the people here did not bow to the city's glitter. Their strength came from the earth beneath their feet, an earth that taught them patience, endurance, and resilience. The rumble of a distant car echoed again, Some children ran to the roadside to watch. Dust lifted in soft clouds as a vehicle approached, its sleek design out of place in the township. The rough road fought against its tires, shaking the expensive machine as if to remind it, here, even the rich must slow down. What none of them knew was that this arrival would stir a change, one that would touch Talia's life soon. The rough road had shaped many destinies, and now it prepared to shape hers too. The morning sun rose slowly over the township, casting long shadows across the dusty ground. The air was filled with the sound of people waking up, calling to one another, the clatter of pots, and the quiet hum of life that never truly slept. Even though the city stood tall in the distance, its towers shining like proud giants here in the township, time moved differently. It moved with struggle, with hope, and with stories carried by the wind. Small food stalls lined the narrow paths, each covered with bright cloths that danced in the breeze. Women stirred pots of steaming porridge, and the smell of roasted maize mixed with the scent of wet sand from the night rain. A group of children ran barefoot between the stalls, laughing, their feet kicking up light clouds of dust. Among the sounds of morning, an old man sat outside his unfinished house. Its rough concrete walls stood like broken promises. Iron rods poked from the top, reaching toward the sky but never touching it, just like dreams that never found the strength to grow. He rubbed his hands slowly, as if trying to warm the memories hidden in his palms. A young boy passed by and stared at the house. "Baba Koma," he asked softly, "will you ever finish it?" The old man smiled, but it was the kind of smile that hides a wound. "My son," he said, "a house waits when a man's life is not ready. When the heart is heavy, the walls cannot rise." The boy nodded, though he did not fully understand. He continued down the path, where more houses stood half-built. Silent reminders of men who left in search of jobs they never found, of families that hoped for money that never arrived, and of lives that were paused by hardship. Despite the struggles, the township breathed with warmth. Women greeted each other like sisters. Men sharing morning tea argued loudly about football, and from somewhere inside a small yard, the soft voice of a grandmother telling a story floated into the air. "Listen, children," she said, "the ancestors walk with us. When you forget them, life becomes heavy. When you honor them, even a storm becomes a friend." The children gathered at her feet, wide-eyed, her words wrapped around them like a blanket, bringing comfort even when nothing around them seemed certain. A young mother walked past with a basket on her head. She looked tired, but her steps were steady. As she crossed the path, her eyes drifted toward the tall city buildings glowing in the distance. For a moment she whispered to herself, one day my children will walk there." But her words carried more doubt than hope, and the wind seemed to swallow them before they could fly. A man behind her chuckled bitterly. "The city looks close, but for people like us, it is farther than the moon." Another man replied, "Still, we wake up every day. Maybe that is our strength." Their voices blended with the township's heartbeat, a mix of pain and courage, fear and faith. Though the contrast between the shining city and the struggling township was sharp, no one here let despair win fully. Every evening, neighbors gathered around small fires. Elders shared stories about battles fought long ago, about spirits who watched in the wind, and about how pride, kindness, or greed could shape a destiny. Even the incomplete houses seemed to listen, standing quietly as if waiting for the next chapter of life to unfold. And as the sun continued to rise, lighting both the tall towers and the dusty paths, the township prepared itself for another day, another chance, another test. Because here, in this place where dreams were often delayed but never completely broken, everyone knew one truth. When the ancestors walk with you, even the poorest ground can grow a story strong enough to change a life. The sun rose slowly over the edge of the township, washing the land in a soft golden glow. The morning light touched the dusty pathways, the crowded food stalls, and the half-finished houses that stood like tired giants. In the distance, the glittering city shone proudly, its tall buildings catching the sunlight like polished spears. But here inside the township, life carried a different rhythm, one shaped by struggle, hope, and the voices of the past. Women arranged vegetables in small baskets, calling out prices with voices sharp as morning birds. The smell of fried dough and hot tea filled the air. Children ran between the stalls, their laughter bright, but their clothes worn from many days of play. A young girl paused to tie her broken sandal. She looked toward the skyline and whispered, "One day I will walk in that city." Her mother heard her and shook her head gently. "My child," she said, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. "The city shines, yes, but remember, the brightest light can hide the deepest shadows." Nearby, an old man named Mzilemba sat on a wooden stool, beating dust from his faded hat. The lines on his face carried years of stories, each wrinkle carved by a lesson learned the hard way. He called to a group of young boys passing by. "Come here, children. Sit before your legs run faster than your minds." The boys gathered eagerly. Mzilemba lifted his hand toward the unfinished houses rising behind him. Iron rods poked into the sky like bones of forgotten dreams. "Do you see those walls?" he asked. One boy nodded. "Yes, Baba. My uncle started building one like that. He said he would finish it after finding good work." "And did he?" the old man asked. The boy lowered his gaze. "No. He left and never came back." Mzilemba let out a deep breath. "These houses remind us of something important. A dream without wisdom is like a drum without a skin, loud in your hands but empty in its sound." The children stayed quiet, letting the words settle. A light breeze brushed across their faces, carrying the scent of burning charcoal and fresh maize. From another corner of the street, an old woman known as Mama Dodo walked slowly with her wooden cane. She was respected by everyone, for she carried more stories than any book in the city could hold. "Ah, children," she said, smiling softly. "Come, let me add to what Lemba said." The boys and girls shifted closer to her. Her voice was gentle but strong, like the steady beat of a talking drum. "In the old days," she began, "our ancestors walked with us. They guided us, warned us, and blessed us. But today, many people forget them. They chase the shiny things in the city and leave behind the wisdom that keeps a person standing tall." One girl raised her hand. "Mama, do the ancestors still see us?" Mama Dodo nodded slowly. "Yes, child. They see your steps, your fear, your pride, your kindness. The city may ignore you, but the ancestors do not." Her words settled over the children like a warm blanket. A few adults nearby paused their work just to listen. Even in a busy morning, the voice of an elder could quiet the whole street. As the sun climbed higher, the contrast between the township and the city grew clearer. The city sparkled like a treasure far from reach, while the township remained wrapped in dust, noise, and half-built walls. Yet, here there was something the city could not steal, a heart shaped by shared stories, shared food, and shared pain. A young man walked by carrying a bundle of wood on his back. Sweat clung to his forehead. An elder called out to him, "My son, are you going to build again today?" The young man smiled tiredly. "Yes, Baba. Even if my hands shake, I will try again. A man must finish what he starts." The elder nodded proudly. "Good. The ancestors bless the one who rises after falling." His words drifted across the street, touching the ears of everyone nearby. And in that moment, the township felt alive, not because of its buildings or its wealth, but because of the wisdom carried by its people. By midday, more elders gathered under a large tree. Children sat at their feet. Women took a short rest from their stalls. Men leaned on their tools. The township paused, as it did every day, to listen to the stories that shaped who they were. Mzilemba raised his hand again. "Remember this," he said. "A people without their stories are like a river without water. They may appear alive, but they cannot give life." The crowd nodded. Some repeated the words softly, letting them settle in their hearts. As the wind picked up, it carried with the scent of hope, a small hope, maybe, but strong enough to survive even in the shadow of the shining city. The township breathed in unity, ready for whatever came next. Morning broke over the township like a slow drumbeat, steady and low. The sun stretched its light across the dusty paths, touching the crooked food stalls and the half-finished concrete houses that stood like forgotten promises. Just beyond them, the modern city glittered proudly, its tall buildings rising like silver spears. But inside the township, life followed a rhythm the city could never understand. Vendors lifted their stall covers, shaking off the night's dust. A woman fanned her charcoal stove until the fire glowed bright red, its heat warming her wrinkled hands. Another woman beside her sliced mangoes, calling out, "Sweet as the morning sun, come taste before it melts away." Her voice danced through the air, mixing with the smell of roasted maize and fresh tea. Children ran barefoot, their laughter echoing between the walls. Their clothes might have been torn, but the joy in their eyes was whole. A boy collided with a man carrying a sack of potatoes. The sack burst open, scattering potatoes across the dirt. "Oh, I'm sorry, Baba," the boy cried. The man sighed, tired from hunger and the long walk from the farms. Before he could bend down, 3 neighbors rushed forward. "Brother, leave it," one said. "We will help," another added. Within seconds, the scattered potatoes were picked up and placed back into the torn sack. The man's face softened. "May the ancestors shine on you all," he whispered. "Here," said an elderly woman nearby, handing him a small cloth. "Tie it around the hole. You cannot lose what little you have." He accepted it with shaking hands, gratitude filling his eyes. As he walked away, Mama Sifa, known in the township for her wise tongue, clicked her teeth softly. "Look at that," she said to the children gathered near her. "A man may be poor, but he is never alone when his people stand with him." The children nodded. One little girl asked, "Mama Sifa, why do people help each other when they also have so little?" Mama Sifa lifted her chin toward the modern city skyline. The tall glass buildings sparkled like jewels untouched by dust. "That place," she said, "shines with money. But this place," she tapped the ground lightly with her stick, "shines with hearts. In the city, a man can be surrounded by thousands and still be lonely. But here, even the poorest child has a hand to hold." Her words drifted into the morning air like smoke rising from a cooking pot. A sharp cry came from across the road. A young woman had dropped her basket, spilling fresh tomatoes into the dirt. Before she could cry out again, the entire street seemed to move as one. A group of women rushed to save the tomatoes that were still firm. A man fetched clean water from his home, so she could wash the rest. A boy ran to buy her a new basket with the 4 coins he had saved for sweets. The woman stared at them, overwhelmed. I have nothing to repay you," she said. An old man laughed gently. "Repay? My daughter, kindness is not a loan. It is a seed. When you plant it, it grows in places you cannot see." She covered her face, holding back tears. As the sun rose higher, the city skyline shone brighter, but so did the spirit of the township. People shared food cooked in crack pots. A neighbor without money ate the same meal as the woman who prepared it. Children played with toys made from wires and bottle caps, yet their joy filled the streets louder than any store-bought game. Even in hardship, the township breathed like one body, strong, stubborn, and full of heart. A gentle wind swept through, lifting a thin cloud of dust. Men paused their work. Women paused their cooking. For just a moment, everyone felt connected, as if the ancestors had walked through the street, reminding them that unity is the fire that keeps a community warm when the world grows cold. And though the city sparkled like treasure in the distance, it was a township, with its cracked walls and dusty roads, that held the richest gold of all, the unbreakable power of standing together. The sun had barely climbed over the township when a calm hush fell upon one corner of the dusty road. It was a place where the elders often gathered, a small open area shaded by an old fig tree whose twisted roots looked like fingers gripping the earth. The people said the tree had stood there longer than most houses, watching generations rise and fall like waves. As the morning light touched the tree's branches, a group of elderly women began to arrange offerings at its base. Small clay bowls filled with millet, roasted groundnuts, and a cup of fresh water were placed carefully on a woven mat. A young girl followed behind them, carrying a tiny calabash filled with herbs. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from respect. Mama Zawina, the oldest of the women, spoke softly. "Child, walk gently. The spirits listen more closely when the ground is quiet." The girl nodded. "Yes, Mama." The women took their places, forming a circle around the mat. Slowly, they began to hum, a deep, steady sound that rose from their chests like the rumble of distant thunder. Their voices blended together, creating a chant older than anyone in the township could remember. A few men nearby stopped repairing a broken fence just to listen. Children who had been kicking a plastic ball paused mid-game, their eyes drawn to the circle of elders. Even the vendors selling tea looked up, sensing that this was not a moment to disturb. Mama Zawina lifted her hands, her fingers thin as dry branches. "We honor the ones who walk before us," she said, her voice strong despite her age. "They carried our stories. They carried our pain. They carried our hope." The others repeated softly, "Our hope." A faint wind blew, lifting the edge of the woven mat. Some of the children shivered. Though the morning was warm, they whispered to each other. "Do you think the spirits are here?" one boy asked. Another nodded with wide eyes. "My grandmother says they never leave us. They walk with us when we are good and watch us when we forget who we are." Near the back of the crowd, a teenage boy smirked. "Spirits? That's just old people's talk." But the smirk faded when Mama Zawina's gaze fell directly on him, sharp, knowing, like she could see into the hidden corners of his heart. "The spirits do not need your belief," she said gently. "They only need your respect." The boy swallowed hard and lowered his eyes. As the chanting grew deeper, Mama Zawina sprinkled a handful of white powder over the offerings. The powder sparkled as it fell, catching the sunlight. She whispered, "For peace." She sprinkled again, "For protection." A third time, "For guidance." Then she leaned forward and poured a few drops of water onto the roots of the fig tree. The sound was soft, almost a kiss, but everyone heard it. A breeze rustled the leaves, and the township seemed to breathe with it. The noise of the city beyond the hills faded away. For a moment, even the struggles of poverty seemed to soften under the weight of tradition. Mama Zawina ended with a final prayer. "Ancestors, keep our steps steady on these dusty roads. Keep our hearts kind, even when hardship tries to harden them. And remind us, always, that we belong to each other." The chanting faded slowly. The women bowed their heads. The children stepped forward one by one, placing small stones or flowers near the offerings. Each gesture was simple, but in the township, even small respect carried great meaning. A young mother whispered to her son, "Never forget this. A community without respect for the spirit world is like a tree without roots. It will fall at the first strong wind." The boy nodded, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. As the townspeople returned to their morning routines, cooking, selling, repairing, laughing, the offerings remained beneath the fig tree, glowing softly in the sunlight. In the distance, the tall city buildings glittered like polished mirrors. But here, under the shade of the old tree, the truth of the community lived. Not in wealth or bright lights, but in the gentle connection between the living and those who came before them. And even though no one could see the spirits, everyone felt the peace they left behind. The sun hung low over the township, spreading a warm orange glow across the dusty pathways that twisted between half-finished concrete houses. Smoke from the small food stalls rose into the air, smoke mixed with the smell of roasted maize, fried plantains, and spicy street stew. The voices of sellers echoed through the narrow lanes. "Hot maize, fresh maize. Come, sister, buy stew before the pot sleeps." Children ran barefoot through the dust, chasing each other with laughter that tried, just for a moment, to overpower the struggles around them. Old men sat outside their doors, carving wooden animals or mending broken stools. Women carried buckets of water on their heads, their steps steady and practiced, their faces tired yet proud. Near the center of the township, two elders sat beneath a giant baobab tree. Its roots were thick and twisted like the stories of old, deep, powerful, and impossible to forget. One elder tapped his walking stick on the ground and said softly, "Night is coming." And when the sun sleeps, the ancestors listen. A young boy passing by stopped and whispered, "Will you tell another story tonight, grandfather?" The old man smiled. "Ah, child, stories are the breath of this land. If we stop telling them, even the wind will forget our names." Yet beyond these voices, beyond the dust, beyond the heat, something else stood tall, shining like a distant dream. The modern city. Its glass towers sparkled beneath the falling sun. Bright lights blinked awake, like stars rising before the night sky. Cars moved like restless beasts, humming and growling along smooth roads. Even from a township, one could hear the faint roar of the city, its pulse fast, its hunger endless. A young girl named Ao paused in the middle of the street, carrying a bucket of water. Her clothes were worn, her hands rough, and dust clung to her bare feet. She lifted her eyes toward the city skyline, where tall buildings glowed like they were made of gold. "Look at that," she whispered to herself, her voice soft but heavy with longing. "The city shines as if it has no darkness." Her neighbor, Mama Tendo, looked up from her food stall and shook her head gently. "Child, the city shines because it hides its shadows. Here in the township, we walk with our truth." Ao lowered her eyes, but her heart stayed lifted toward the glowing skyline. She was a poor maid who slept outside at night, yet every time she saw those lights, something inside her stirred. A small hope, a quiet dream, a whisper she tried to ignore but could never silence. The elders often said, "The city blinds the young with its brightness, but light alone cannot feed a hungry stomach, and gold cannot wash away the dust of one's past." Still, Ao wondered. Around her, the township breathed with life and hardship at the same time. People argued over small debts. A mother scolded her child for stealing roasted nuts. A father returned home late from the city with empty pockets and tired eyes. Every sound was a reminder of the struggle that wrapped itself around this community, like an old blanket, warm but heavy. The wind carried the sound of drumming from a distant house, mix it with the cry of a baby and the laughter of teenagers playing a broken radio. Ao stepped aside as a car passed through, the only clean car seen in those narrow streets. Its windows were dark, its engine too smooth for a place like this. Children stopped to stare. Women paused from their cooking. Even the elders under the baobab lifted their eyes. "Ah," one elder murmured. "When such cars pass through the dust, something is about to change." Ao watched the car until it disappeared behind the unfinished houses. A strange feeling washed over her, something between fear and curiosity. It was as if the ancestors had blown a quiet warning into her ear. She hugged her bucket close and whispered, "May they guide me wherever my path leads." Behind her, the city lights flickered brighter, almost calling her name. Ahead of her, the township waited with its familiar struggles, its traditions, and its hidden stories. But Ao did not yet know. Her life was about to step out of the dust, and into a world she never imagined. The wind shifted, carrying both the smell of roasted maize and the faint scent of something new. Something fate had begun to weave. And in that moment, between the glowing skyline and the dusty earth, the journey of a poor maid began. Evening settled over the township like a giant blanket woven from dust, smoke, and tired breaths. The day's heat faded, but the weight of struggle remained on every roof and every heart. Lanterns began to glow outside the small concrete houses. Tiny lights fighting the darkness the same way the people fought their daily battles. Mama Tendo's food stall was still open, her pot of stew bubbling softly. She wiped sweat from her forehead and whispered, "Another day survived by the mercy of the ancestors." Across the street, children gathered around an elderly woman who sat on a wooden stool worn smooth by time. Her hair was white, her back bent, but her voice carried the strength of ancestors long gone. "Come closer," she said, raising a wrinkled hand. Night is a time when spirits walk softly and truth stands tall. The children huddled near her, some sitting on the ground, some leaning forward with sparkling eyes. The old woman smiled, the wrinkles on her face deepening like river paths. Long before these concrete houses, long before the city lights rose like giants on the horizon, our people lived by the law of the heart. We shared what we had. We protected each other. We honored every tear and every joy. Her voice was low but powerful, cutting through the evening air like a drumbeat. Ao stood nearby with her worn blanket draped over her shoulder. She had finished her chores, and now she lingered, listening. Her face was young but tired, her eyes carrying stories even she did not know how to tell. The old woman noticed her and beckoned gently. "Ayo, child, come closer. The spirits have room for all." Ayo stepped forward slowly. "I only wish to listen, grandmother," she murmured. "And that," the elder replied, "is how wisdom enters a person, through ears that are humble." The township grew quieter as the sun disappeared completely. Far away, the city skyline lit up in golden rose. The tall buildings glimmered proudly, almost mocking the soft lanterns of the township. The old woman pointed her crooked finger toward the glowing city. "You see those lights? They shine like they have swallowed all the stars. But don't be fooled, children. Light that does not come from the heart can blind, not guide." A boy asked softly, "Grandmother, why does the city look so rich while we suffer?" She sighed deeply. "Because the world is shaped like a calabash, round, uneven, never balanced. Some drink too much sweetness, while others swallow bitterness. But the ancestors watch all. They weigh every heart." Ayo looked down at her dusty feet. "Sometimes I feel the city is calling me, like there is something there waiting for me." The elder studied her quietly before speaking. "When a river calls your name, you must ask if it wants to give you water or pull you under." Ayo's heart trembled at those words. Nearby, a father returned home carrying a bag of old tools. His shoulders sagged with exhaustion, yet he forced a smile for his little daughter running to greet him. A few steps away, a young mother rocked her crying baby, whispering prayers for food she did not yet have. And on a far corner, two teenage boys argued over a broken radio, laughing in the middle of their struggle because laughter was the cheapest medicine. The township was alive, alive with pain, alive with hope, alive with spirits older than time. Above them, the baobab tree swayed gently in the night breeze, its enormous branches reaching toward the sky like the arms of an ancient guardian. Some said it connected the living and the dead. Some said its roots held the memories of everyone who had ever walked those dusty paths. Tonight, its leaves rustled as though whispering back to the people, "Endure, rise, your stories are not finished." Ayo closed her eyes for a moment. She felt something deep, something both heavy and comforting, a mix of fear, hope, and longing, a feeling she could not name yet. The elder's voice broke through the silence. "This township, it carries wounds, but it also carries warriors. Pain may visit our doors, but hope sleeps inside our walls." She touched her chest. "Where there is breath, there is story." A soft wind passed between the houses, lifting dust into the air. It moved like a spirit, dancing to the streets, brushing past Ayo's face, then drifting toward the glowing city. Ayo watched it go. She didn't know that the same wind would soon return, carrying a destiny she never expected. For now, the township rested under the night sky, a place of broken dreams and unbroken spirits, a land where pain walked openly, where hope refused to die, and where a poor maid's journey was quietly beginning to awaken.